And good morning to all of you. This is my first time to attend these very, very important beginning of the week. And I think I like the name of what you call this forum. It reminds me of the good old saying in the past, early to bed, early to rise. So you're all early, the early birds. And of course, the early birds always catch the early worms. If there's no early worm to be caught, then the early bird will go hungry. So very, very happy to meet all of you virtually. And thanks for the introduction. Public health is not a field that many people are familiar with. People are familiar with cardiologists, nephrologists, basically those people who work in hospitals to treat the sick. But public health, by its definition, is largely preventive. And I was encouraged to go into this field because of my two previous experiences as a young doctor. One, I opened a clinic some time back when I started practice in the village. And then what I saw really kind of informed what I'm doing right now. There was this mother who comes in with a child who was obviously very, very sick and gasping. We use the term gasping to describe the last breaths that a patient takes before they die. So I tell the mother that actually you are in the wrong place because this is just a clinic and I treat things like malaria and so on. But for people like this who are terminally almost, a child who's gasping, there's nothing much I can do. So the mother told me that, no, you are a doctor. And I've come to you, so you have to try and do your best. So I try and do my best. I inject all the necessary drugs that try and recover somebody who's gasping, including some direct injections to the heart. But then the child passes on, dies. So then I turn up being now the mortuary attendant. So I have to now escort the mother plus the child, take her home in my car, console her, comfort her. And this is a child who died from pneumonia and anemia, something that could have been prevented or even treated early if we had the right systems in place. And I'm happy to see that the social health insurance has introduced this cadre of staff called the community-based health workers, who will be working at the community level and allowed to dispense some basic drugs. Like this child, all that child needed when they started coughing or increasing in breathing rates was an antibiotic, which the community-based health workers can actually be trained to give at the household level. So that informed me to move away from health facility-based services to community-based prevention. The second example was, as young doctors, normally when the experienced doctors go out to play golf on weekends, they ask us to cover their clinics over the weekend. So one experienced doctor called me in the sports club, can I cover for him? So I went and covered for him. Now, while covering for him, a patient came in who had been seen earlier to continue with treatment. And what they had was a sexually transmitted infection. So then I looked at what the experienced doctor had given. Of course, some very good antibiotics plus an injection. And then I said, okay, the most important treatment that you received yesterday was these tablets for swallowing. The injection was just a psychological to make you feel like, because those days people really believe in injections. This is just a vitamin to make you feel like you were actually treated. But the main thing that you need to swallow are these medicines that you're given to swallow. And then I asked him, but then at the same time, I need to see your spouse or your partner. Of course, that was a no-go area. And the following day, when the experienced doctor came back to work on Monday, of course, this patient now came in with their spouse. And needless to say, the following weekends, when the doctor was going out for golf, he never then invited me to cover for him anymore. I understood why. Because I'd explained to the patient what are the right treatments, and I more or less also told him that I need to see all the partners that the patient interacted with. That is what public health is. You treat the community. And it's important that we understand this, because health and ill health is made at home and our workplaces, not in health facilities. Health facilities are there to treat what has failed us at home and at the workplace. So most of my presentation today will dwell on what we can do at home and the workplace to remain healthy. Currently, I'm informed that we also have speakers from outside Kenya. So my presentation, especially on data, will be global and categorize low, middle income or high income. So I will not be dwelling so much on Kenyan data. But as we know, our life expectancy has greatly improved. All of us gathered here, it's nice to see that we are healthy, and barring calamities like accidents and so on, we should live to be 80, 85, and even 90. And we are beginning to see this. The age group that is approaching those years is on the increase. The question is, how are we going to be when we clock those years? How we remain healthy in our old age, especially when the inevitable diseases start cropping in. So how we live, how well we live in our old age without disabilities depends on what we do now. How we treat our bodies currently. And I can see that most of you are basically pretty young people, 30, 35, 40 probably. So how well you take care of your body now will determine how well you will be when you're in your 80s. And we're seeing this in Japan, we're seeing this in advanced countries, where people who are old, 80, 85, 90, are still moving around, working, walking, and being productive to the community. I cannot say the same for Kenya, because once people clock 80, they're either bedridden, their joints cannot support them anymore, they're sick, they're going for dialysis every week. All that could have been prevented if they'd done the right thing at the age that you are now. So if you look at diseases that cause us problems in both high-income countries and middle-income countries, and Kenya now falls under what we call the middle-income countries. We have the top causes of death. On the left of your screen, we're comparing the year 2000 and the year 2019. The top causes of death in high-income countries is ischemic heart disease, diseases of the heart, Alzheimer's, and other dementias, stroke, and then you have the cancers of the lung and so on, and chronic pulmonary diseases. The majority are actually non-communicable diseases, with the exception of one, the lower respiratory infections. And you can see that these non-communicable diseases are on the decline when you compare the 2000 figures and 2019 figures, where the filled circle in blue are the 2019 figures, and the unfilled circle is the 2000 figures. So you can see that for most cases, except for Alzheimer's and dementia, in the developing countries, they're all on the decline. Now, if you come to the slide on your right, you have the low middle income countries, and Kenya falls in this category, where we begin to see the biggest causes of death that are actually happening in the advanced countries are beginning to creep in our country as well. So ischemic heart disease is number one for the low middle income countries. Stroke is also the second killer. And then you have the infectious communicable diseases still playing a big role in our countries. So you have low respiratory infections, the pneumonias, the diarrheas, the TB. All these are preventable communicable diseases. But the good thing in our setup, low middle income countries, is that the infectious diseases, communicable diseases, are on the decline. But the diseases of affluence, the heart diseases, the stroke, the liver cirrhosis, the diabetes, are on the increase in the low middle income countries, as compared to them declining in the advanced countries. So we're going to end up having a double needing to take care of infectious diseases in our setup, as well as now begin to grapple with the diseases of affluence. And the good thing about all the diseases of affluence is that they are all preventable with lifestyle changes. So bar road accidents and so on, but most of these diseases are preventable with lifestyle changes. Now, what is missing on the slide for low middle income countries, and which is a big killer in our setup, is HIV/AIDS, which still accounts for about 30%. In fact, last year, HIV/AIDS was a leading killer of Kenyans last year. So that is not on the slide for low middle income countries. And also not on the slide is malaria and violence. Violence is also beginning to creep up in our setup as a top killer of our people. So it's a question of, if you want to live a disability-free life up to old age, what is it that we need to do to make sure that we're able to live long enough to see our grandchildren and to be able to communicate with them and not to be a burden to them in terms of them taking care of us because we are disabled by conditions that should have been prevented early on in life. And as you know, we have beautiful things called a body. The human body is a fantastic, I don't think anything has ever been engineered like the human body. The unfortunate thing that the heart and the liver and the lungs that you're born with, at least in our setup, we're not too much in transplants yet, need to serve you up to old age. It's the same heart and the same kidneys have to keep on pumping blood for the next, in your case, 40, 50 years. The same kidneys have to continue filtering waste for the next 40 to 50 years. But these conditions that you see on your slide have a very, very major impact on these organs that I've mentioned, on the heart, the kidneys, the lungs, the liver, and so on. So I'll touch on a few of the diseases because they have a big impact on all these causes of death. And if we take care of them, then we should be able to look forward to a healthy life, a healthy old age moving forward. The first is hypertension. I think many of you have heard what hypertension is all about. It's an increase in blood pressure. The heart pumps blood around the body with the sole purpose of delivering oxygen and nutrients around the body. So that blood that is moving around the body is carrying oxygen, is also carrying what all the cells need in terms of glucose, so that the body is able to function. Now, the normal pressure that the heart pumps blood is between 120 systolic, that is the top number, and 80 diastolic. So what you need to understand is that basically these are blood vessels, okay? And blood is flowing through those blood vessels. In order to maintain that pressure for the blood to move, that is what is called blood pressure. That pressure is needed for the blood to flow through your blood vessels. Now, when the heart contracts, the pressure that is exerted is a top number, okay? The one I mentioned, the 120. And then when it relaxes, there is a bottom number, is the 80. That's when it relaxes. But depending on your health, high blood pressure starts increasing. So of course, they start swelling, the blood vessels start swelling, and after a while, they start hardening. They start hardening, and that's when you say that you have high blood pressure. When the pressure in those blood vessels become very, very high, up to the point where they can even rupture. In fact, when they rupture, especially when they rupture in the head, that's when you talk about having a stroke. And when they rupture in the heart, that's when you talk about having a heart attack, because the vessels of the heart then rupture and the blood is not able to flow in these vital organs so that they can then provide the nutrients and so on. So high blood pressure is one of the commonest causes of the condition that I mentioned above. The ischemic heart disease, the kidneys get affected, the main vital organs, and of course the brain in a way also gets affected. So it affects about 1.9 billion people aged between 30 to 79 worldwide. The problem is that half of them do not know that they have the condition. So you're walking around, you're looking healthy, and basically you do not know that you have high blood pressure. And it is symptomless for most of us. Now, it only starts having symptoms of breathlessness, pain in the chest, palpitations. You feel like your heart is actually beating. When the pressure goes to 180 over 120. That's when they go to a health facility and have their pressure checked, and then they're informed that they have high blood pressure. Now, the diagnosis is mainly done, you go once, and because you're anxious when you arrive there, the most likely will find that your pressure is high. So you need to have it repeated a second time to confirm that you have high blood pressure. And then your doctor will most likely then start you on the right medication. But we can reduce the risks and lifestyle changes that we need to put in place to reduce high blood pressure is basically making sure that you are not overweight, because overweight is one of the contributors of high blood pressure. Being obese is also one of the contributors of high blood pressure. So you need to be physically active. Being physically inactive also contributes to high blood pressure. Your diet, what you eat, especially a diet that has a lot of salt. We normally say that the salt that is added in the kitchen while one is cooking should be more than enough. You should not add any salt on the table. So all these salt dispensers that you see in hotels and you see where in eating places, or probably even in your house, should be removed. So that the salt that is cooked, that is put in the food and while it's being cooked should be more than enough. Alcohol, of course, contributes to high blood pressure, and I shall talk to that later on. Stress, and then of course, if you have relatives, immediate family members, grandfathers, fathers who had high blood pressure, there's a more likelihood that one will also have high blood pressure if they have relatives, close relatives who have that pressure. The lifestyle changes here are sitting less. I think you may have heard this term. Sitting is the new smoking. There's something about human beings. We are an upright animal. And being upright and being given legs means that you therefore moving. So you have to keep moving. And I shall touch on this later on in my slide. So physical activity, sorry, your cameras are on my slides. I don't know how to move them. I need to move them to the side. You can still see the slide?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. So physical activity is very, very important, and we underestimate this. People have postulated that if you see the French are they like their food, but whenever they go out for lunch, what keeps them slim is that they do not jump in their cars to go back after feeding. They walk 1 or 2 blocks to their offices. So physical activity, being able to move and at least 150 minutes per week, which works to about 20 minutes of exercise every day. And we're not talking about going to the gym and sweating it out and no. Just brisk walking so that you're able to at least be breathless while you're walking is good enough. Those who are energetic can do the running, can do all the necessary things that young people do. But you do not have to exert your body in such a way that that you feel like you've been, active. So physical activity is very, very important. Strength and flexibility exercises, especially the muscles, the big muscles, need to be, because this is where they improve the flow of blood. The flow of blood is improved in the big muscles, and therefore the strain on the heart is reduced, and therefore high blood pressure is kept at bay. Loss of weight, if one is overweight or obese, you need to lose that weight. Reduce and managing stress, and regularly having your blood pressure checked, because as I said, it is symptomless and only is diagnosed late. And of course, watching what we eat in terms of more vegetables and more fruits. The next big thing that I mentioned that is taking people is HIV/AIDS. It is still killing. And as I mentioned, it remains one of the top killers, despite all the preventive efforts that have been made. It remains one of the big killers. Worldwide, you're talking about 39.9 people living with HIV/AIDS, of whom 66% are in Africa. The good thing is that in Africa, 90% they knew or they know the HIV status, and 82% are on treatment, while 73% are suppressed. They've suppressed viral loads. But as I said, it remains one of the biggest killers in our country. The knowledge about the HIV status, and I think one of the first ways of preventing one from having HIV/AIDS is to know your status. Once you know your status and your partners, I think you are motivated to remain. If you're negative, you're motivated to remain negative, and if positive, then you seek appropriate treatment, and you're safe for yourself and your loved one. So knowing your status is very, very crucial. It's not like in the old days. I recall HIV/AIDS, I think, came into a picture when I just got into practice sometime in 1983. And at that time, it was a killer. People did not want to know their status. There was a stigma associated with it. So people preferred not to know their status. They felt like it was easier to just keep quiet about it. But that has now changed. Adequate, proper treatment, appropriate treatments are now available, and people have been known to live a comfortable, long life, even with HIV, so long as they take their medicines at the right time. One partner at a time. I think this is something that is not really drilled very hard in our environments. One of the indicators that children are brought up in advanced countries is how many girlfriends have you had as an adolescent. And that indicator, basically, what it shows is that when one has a partner, there is commitment to that partner. You don't change them. But in Africa settings, it's like multiple partners is the in thing. And that has contributed to the explosive nature of HIV/AIDS in Africa. You have these multiple partners, and I think it was for men, it was like a macho thing to have multiple partners. And as I said, in advanced countries, children are brought up even in a family. It's not how many girlfriends. You have one girlfriend. If your parents hear that you've changed that girlfriend, you have to have very good reasons why you've moved on. And it's not something that is insisted upon very much in our setups. And of course, there are preventive methods nowadays. I've just mentioned one of them, condoms, but there are many other ways that one can prevent themselves from HIV. But it remains a killer, and it's something that needs to be taken care of. I should mention that when I was medical officer of health way back in Kakamega, I remember in 1983, I came out headlines in the Standard newspaper, AIDS in Kakamega. I got calls from the Minister of Health, who was Honorable Matiba at that time, all the way from Geneva, where he was handling a meeting. And you know how we had no mobile phones, at least they had not come out at that time. I just got a message from my office is looking for me. There's a call from the minister. Can I be there in an hour's time to receive this call? And I thought I was going to get fired because we were still in denial. AIDS was not in Kenya then, we were being told. But I think if the country had taken the message seriously then, we would not probably be where we are right now. Yes, the next condition that I want to touch on is diabetes, which again is quite prevalent as from my first slides. It is becoming a major killer in our country, in the low middle income countries. And as you saw in the first slide, it's showing a reduction. It's showing a reduction in high income countries. Okay, there hasn't been much change, but it's the 10th highest killer in developed countries. And it is the 9th in low middle income and is on the increase. So this is basically elevated levels of blood sugar, which leads to the damage to the heart, the blood vessels, the eyes, the kidneys, and nerves. Basically, because sugar is in the blood. So because it's in the blood, it affects virtually all the organs that the sugar interacts with. And the damage, unfortunately, over time is irreversible. Now, how do we, the symptoms include going to the toilet, especially the short call, many times. You have thirst, constant hunger, weight loss, vision changes, and fatigue. But this is towards the full-blown end of diabetes. But again, at the beginning, the symptoms are not there. So they're only discovered when the disease actually takes hold of the body. That's when the symptoms start coming in. Especially for type 2 diabetes, we are talking mainly about type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes, which is common basically in children, and because of low insulin, where they then need to go on insulin for life. Type 2 diabetes is the one that is found mainly in adults, and is again more to do with lifestyle behavior that is a contributor to diabetes. So once again, regular checkups will diagnose high blood sugar, and being able to exercise regularly, eating healthy, reducing carbohydrates and fats in one's diet, controlling blood pressure, and especially the cholesterol, the lipids, are important in keeping away diabetes. And if one is a smoker, cutting down your risk of cuts down the risk of developing diabetes by almost 20 to 30%. So the good thing that I think smoking is on the decline in middle-income countries, and Kenya included, but we still need to be aware of it, that it is a contributor of 40% of diabetes. We saw liver cirrhosis on the slide, and it was number 8 as a cause of. How much time do I have left?
You can finish, for example, by 8 a.m. That is in 6 minutes, if possible, and then people will be asking questions.
Okay.
There are usually enough questions.
Okay. So then I think I'm almost there. So alcohol cirrhosis can be caused by many things, but I think the biggest culprit is alcohol. We also have infections like hepatitis B, which is a vaccine. We have hepatitis A, which you can get from many other things, including not well cooked or not well prepared salad and so on. But alcohol is the biggest contributor to cirrhosis. And I'll show a map later on that this is going to be our next big thing in this country. So alcohol in whatever amount is toxic. Human beings were not meant to be taking alcohol. It's broken down to acetaldehyde, and this chemical is dangerous, is toxic to all cells in the body. Unfortunately, or fortunately, alcohol, as you know, is one of these things that we take as a social thing. It's one of the things that, in parties you go there, you need alcohol is served and so on. So it's a leading risk factor for premature mortality and disability among those aged 15-49, accounting for 10% of deaths in this age group, and 3 million deaths annually. The biggest, besides contributing also to high blood pressure and diabetes and so on, the biggest effect we have is its effect on the liver. Now, alcohol, even small amounts, has an impact on the liver. I think just a glass of alcohol drinking a day for the next 5 years will impact on the liver. First of all, it produces a fatty liver, and then the liver then starts drying up, this fibrosis, and then leads to cirrhosis. The good thing is that the fatty liver and fibrosis is reversible. It's reversible if one stops drinking. Otherwise, once it leads to cirrhosis, the drying up of the liver, when it becomes, as you can see in that picture, then it's irreversible and death is inevitable once cirrhosis crops in. Just last week, I lost a friend of mine from cirrhosis liver failure, and he was just 62 years. And it was because of alcohol. So this is something that can be avoided, but as I mentioned later, there's something about alcohol. As you can see from that map, it's an old map of 2016, but it's still relevant, and I think would have become worse by now, where we have prevalence of heavy episodic drinking among current drinkers, 15 years and above. And you can see Kenya there is between 45 and 99% prevalence of episodic heavy drinking. And I suspect that this is an old map of 2016, and is most likely we could have easily become blue. And you can see it out there. You go out in funerals, you have these disco matangas, and people are drinking to get drunk. It's no longer drinking as a social, drinking socially. It's actually drinking to get drunk. And if this is not addressed, I think we could be seeing alcohol as a cause of death and liver cirrhosis creeping up to much, much higher levels than we have currently. Now, I mentioned medical checkups, and quite a number. As I said, hospitals are not a place to go to unless you're sick. But I think we need to change that and find out how we can start going to hospitals or wherever we can get a quick medical checkup. I've just shown here a Nairobi hospital and some of the charges they have. for the basic tests. Colombia, Africa has a good package. We charges about, for your age, I think I'd go in for the bronze. Male is about 11,000, female is about 12,500. And if you have good insurance, they should be able to take care of that. And the tests are basically just, for your age, I think it's good to establish a baseline so that you know where you're starting from. And if there's anything that can be detected early, it's taken care of. Getting your blood checked, your blood sugar, your blood cholesterol, the lipids, the fats. For ladies, getting a mammogram so that if there's any lumps in the breast that are taken care of. Getting a pap smear for cervical cancer. So all these are important, and your doctor will then advise on how frequently one to have this test done. And the information tips then, I think this is my last slide. Sorry, my second last. So at home, this is where ill health and health is made, at home and at work. Check your weight, regular medical checkups, frequent aerobic exercises, especially for the big muscles, the large muscles, or the legs and the hands. Reduce alcohol intake, because I'm not saying stop, because that has been tried for the last 20 years. It's not going to happen. But if you're taking a bottle, bring it down to half a bottle. If you're taking 4 bottles, bring it down to 2. So reduce alcohol intake. It will still have some impact on your health. Watch your diet, know your HIV status, plenty of sleep. At least 8 hours of sleep has got a beneficial effect on the body. Reading, especially fiction books, starts stimulating your brain to remember things and so on, which I'm sorry to say, most Kenyans, I think, they stop reading, especially fiction books, when they finish with school. Group outdoor activities, there's something to do with improving your health. And at work, movement. Join online challenges. I'm in a billion people in 165 countries that I work together with, and we compare our steps at the end of each day. So you can choose who to be a challenge, and at the end of the month, they do an analysis of these 100+ million people to see how far we walk. So you need to target at least between 6,000 and 10,000 steps every day. So regular breaks. I don't know how you can do that in the workplace. As I mentioned, sitting is the new smoking, but you need to be able to at least get up once every hour just to stretch your muscles, even if you're at where you're seated at your work desk. Stretch those muscles, let the oxygen, let the blood flow in the big muscles so that you don't end up developing these diseases that I've just mentioned. Reduce stress. Most workplace programs actually focus more on improving productivity. Very, very few actually work on reducing stress. So getting involved in some charity work, voluntary work could be beneficial. And then, of course, maintain healthy meals. If where you work, they don't have salads, prepare some for yourself at home and then carry it to your place of work so that you can have it together with your lunch. And at health facilities, include regular checkups and investigations, and of course, vaccinations. And then there's some items that you need to have at the household level to be able to do these checkups. So most of the things you can determine them at home. This is a blood. Can you see my pointer?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a blood glucose measuring machine. You can have that at home. If you don't know what your blood sugar looks like, have it tested. You can have it tested at home by yourself. This gadget here is an oximeter. It came out during the COVID days, and I think it's a very, very useful item to have at home. Measures your oxygen levels. Anything below 90, you need to take care of that. Blood pressure machine, you can check that at home. But this is not for purpose of diagnosis, but just find out exactly where you could be if you're in danger. This is a measuring tape, very important to measure your height. And once you know your height and you know your weight, you can determine your body mass index, and anything above, take those measurements, log into any app that you have, and to give you your BMI, and anything above 25 kilogram per meter squared signifies overweight, and you need to start doing something about it. So having a weighing scale is also very important. And there are now gadgets that you can wear. Apple has come up with an iWatch. I think China has got a number of much cheaper ways. You can wear a band around your wrist. And nowadays, I think they can take your ECG, they can take your blood sugar, they can measure your sugar, they can measure your oxygen. And what else? Your blood pressure, of course. So these are now important gadgets. And even when you sit for more than half an hour, for example, it reminds you that you need to get up and stretch your legs. So these gadgets are household items that you need to have to improve on your health. I will stop there and welcome any questions. Thank you very much for listening.
Yes, we can go to questions. There are lots of questions. I don't know, Antonia or Noel, are you going to read them? Can do them one at a time or two at a time. Daktari, how would you prefer them?
I think if you just can you group them? Is it possible?
Yes,
because some of the answers may apply to the.
Can we group them? Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the first question was from Caroline Mwazi, and she's asked a few others afterwards. How do you identify your ideal weight? Maybe that one you've just mentioned at the end. What BMI? And well, other people who may want to ask questions verbally or to comment, you can always raise up your hands, but you can still put them down. The next question was from Judith Ochieng. What is the role of intermittent fasting in enduring good health? The role of intermittent fasting in enduring good health. And then maybe I asked one more and then you can handle those ones. One is from Milka Muchai, login from Eldoret. How long is one supposed to use high blood pressure drugs? And is there a way to live without the daily use of drugs? Do these drugs have a side effects, or do the drugs damage internal organs? So maybe we can pick on those ones first, then we move on.
Okay. Yes. I think that I mentioned about the figures for the ideal weight. The good thing that nowadays all these things are available on your gadgets. I've mentioned about body mass index, which has underweight, ideal weight, overweight, and obese. So I mentioned 25 to 29 kilograms is considered overweight. Anything above 30 is obese. And the likelihood of dying once you're obese almost quadruples. The probability of dying when one is obese increases almost 3 or 4-fold compared to a normal weight. So those are the figures. But then the best thing is also get this checked, consult your doctor, and then they'll determine if you're the ideal weight for your height. Okay. Intermittent fasting. That is the new kid on the block in terms of diet. And if you look at intermittent fasting, most says that you try and eat whatever you want to eat within a given period. Okay. And then you fast for at least 12 to 14 hours. I think it's been shown to be one of the most effective ways of losing weight, mainly because eating just before you go to bed, as I mentioned, sitting is a new smoking. But also lying, when you go to sleep, you are lying down. And yes, 8 hours of sleep is recommended. but there is nothing else happening in that body in terms of having that food digested. So intermittent fasting actually recommends that from about 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, you've had your last meal. And you fast for the next 12, 13, 14 hours. Because anything that you eat thereafter, and you're going to be sedentary, you're going to be lying down, is not being subjected. It's being digested, but then the glucose is going into, the sugar is going into storage. The fat is not being burnt down because you're not moving. So all that is going in to interfere with the organs of your body. So intermittent fasting is the way to go. And why I like it is that it doesn't dwell so much on the types of food. When the time for eating, that window of eating, it doesn't recommend, any type of food. You just eat what the body likes, which is opposed to the other dietary advisors that tell you to reduce carbs and increase proteins. As I mentioned, the body is a fantastic tool. If God had designed us to just be herbivores, they would have given us stomachs like the cows and the horses and so on. So there's a reason why we were made the way we were made. And the body can take care of itself in terms of assimilating or taking in the nutrients that it needs and letting go of what it does not need. So I know a lot of advice on nutrition is eat this and don't eat this, but I think the body can take care of itself so long as you keep doing what the body is meant to do. It's meant to be moving. The legs are there to keep us moving. That's my advice as far as that is concerned. Once you're on hypertensive drugs, it's for life, unfortunately. Because by the time the doctor puts you on hypertensive drugs, they've tried lifestyle, they've tried everything else, and it has not worked. So drugs, once you go on the drugs, then unfortunately it's for life. Over.
There was something about the same question on side effects.
Anything that is not food has side effects. So nobody should tell you that there's no drug that has side effects. All of them have got side effects. But the benefits, in most cases, that is why they go through a lot of process in terms of before they're registered. The side effects outweigh, the benefits outweigh the side effects.
Great. Now, maybe we go to some one or two more because of time. There is a question from Susan M. Thanks, Doc, for this session. Is diabetes, if diabetes is prevalent in a family, both sides, and family members have died of stroke, some at over 70 and others as young as 38, does it mean members of such a family may be at risk due to genetics, irrespective of trying to live a healthy lifestyle? And then Caroline Mwazi asked, what are your thoughts on alternative medicine, e.g. herbals? Maybe we can pick on those ones because of time.
The second question was something on herbals?
On what are your thoughts on alternative medicines, like herbal alternatives, maybe such like things. And today we have many other alternatives that have come, mara reflexology, mara itera, and all those other things. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah. On genetics, yes, I think genetics has got it's got a big play. It plays a big role in terms of diseases. And that is why in some cases, I think, especially for the killer diseases, that one can now go in for genetic re-engineering. And I think sickle cell is one that has now been approved, where if the gene that is responsible, the thing is that you have to go in very early. You have to go in when the child is still in the womb, basically at that stage, and then alter that gene so that they then children do not come up with a full-blown sickle cell. But unfortunately, that is not possible for most of the illnesses, especially the lifestyle illnesses. The genes that contribute to these illnesses, they've not found a way of re-engineering them while a child is still in the womb of the mother. So we have to then just live with the treatments. But one can still keep, even if you're genetically predisposed, one can still keep the disease at bay by lifestyle changes, because it's an interaction between the genes and unfavorable lifestyles. It's that interaction that then brings about the disease. Okay, so the gene, yes, predisposes you to that illness, but the lifestyle then makes one accelerate towards their demise. Now, herbals, basically, the thing about if you go to China, where herbal medicine is really high on the list of medications that they take, is because they have universities and institutions that study this branch of medicine. So at least they're aware, they have the knowledge of which herbs are for which illness. But in our setup, basically, it's a trial and error. But herbs, just like medicines, they contain chemicals. So there is some value in that, yeah, it's not been researched on, but it works. And the herbalists have tried it on a few illnesses, they've seen it working. So then they encourage it. So I'm not, my position is, yes, if it has been proven, then go for it. But most likely, even if it has been proven, it has not been studied in such a way that we know the dosage that should be taken and so on. So that is why the conventional medicines, which have been studied, the dosages that have been studied and so on, are much, much safer. Herbals, at least in our setup, the dosage may not be known, and that they could be harmful to one's health. And the last question was, what was it?
There were just those two only that we were talking of, or your thoughts on alternative medicine, which entail herbals, and then I added things that have come lately, like reflexology, itera.
Yes, and why not? And reflexology, this is basically just movement. I'm in the process of taking my mother-in-law for acupuncture and reflexology, because she's not able to move. And they tell you that they've seen people coming in on a stretcher and they leave walking after 2 or 3 weeks. So my message here is this: at times we're left with no alternative but to try everything that we can to make our loved ones live their last few days healthy. So I will not rule it out. It can work.
Yes. I think, Dr. You will put your contact there, because other people have some other questions. Somebody said even low blood pressure, whatever, they wanted some consultation. So you can just put your contact there, because we are already out of time. Noel, go ahead.
Thank you so much. That was an excellent presentation. Asante sana, Dr. Agostino. And call upon Odhiambo Olale to give a vote of thanks.